Podcast number 1, guys.
Hey, it has begun. It has begun. Now, where do you start, right?
I guess this is introduction, so one of y'all can just kind of take it, and we'll go from there.
You're first. So
All right, I'll go first. Okay.
way.
So, all right, so everybody, I'm Daniel Storie, a.k.a. Mr. Business. And basically, my father was in the Army, so we traveled a lot. Never really had a place I called home until we landed in Asheboro, North Carolina, about the time I was 11 years old. And grew up, military life, good family. Mom stayed at home with myself and my 3 younger brothers, but a poor life. And father worked in the military, and then when he wasn't doing that, he was working his second or third job trying to provide. So kind of from a very early start, a lot of strong role models for work ethic and things. And I think that contributed heavily to where I am today. But grew up in Asheboro and started businesses around the age of, my version of businesses around the age of 13, 14 years old, and at least the idea of being an entrepreneur, being a business person, what my version of success was at that point around that age. And, over the years just grew into many, many things. Ended up going from there to currently live in Mooresville, North Carolina on Lake Norman. And I've got a wife that I've been with for 18 years, been married for 16, and 3 boys.
Crazy.
And as of today, one's 3, about to be 4, and 7 and 9. So it's pretty awesome. Hard to believe.
Yeah. Like Daniel, I actually come from pretty humble beginnings too. I grew up in Asheboro as well. We both met each other there, so we became friends. Actually, we were really poor when I was a young kid because we had just, my dad's family was originally from Asheboro. They've been there for like 250 years or something in Randolph County. It was the early 80s. I was born in 80, so we were coming out of a depression, or recession rather. Times were tough. We didn't even have running water. We had no plumbing in the house, and it was a tiny, few hundred square foot house with 3 rooms. But it was fine. I mean, my parents loved me, and I was happy, so I didn't know any different. And then when I got a little older, my parents built a new house and stuff, and things got better. I always had an interest in business, though. I was always ambitious, even as a young kid. I was always interested in art, also. So I would make drawings and stuff and try to sell them to family members. I was like 6, and I remember when I was probably 8. A friend of mine and I we created a school store. So we bought a bunch of school supplies and got shoe boxes and receipt books, and we'd sell school supplies to other kids at school, and then get together at his house after school and tally up our money and see how well we did.
Awesome.
I'm not sure that we actually made any money, but we sold everything. And I had an uncle that was really successful. He had a really successful drywall company, and he would constantly talk to me about business at my grandmother's house, on the weekends. And I think that planted a lot of the seeds early on for entrepreneurship. And I decided even at that age that when I was grown, I would be self-employed. And eventually I was. I started my first business at 22, but still, worked a job. And I went to school for advertising and graphic design, which I've used a lot, for my own businesses and stuff. But finally, by 27, I was completely self-employed in my 3rd business. And then since then, I've owned about 22 different companies, or probably 25 different companies, actually. And some have been really successful. Some have been really big failures. And, I've done very well, so I'm thankful. I have nothing to complain about. But I have lost everything and then basically started over, which I think that's part of the process. It's
Definitely.
I think it's good to be body slammed a few times and It makes you appreciate things more. Not that I didn't appreciate it to begin with, because I came from nothing, so I appreciate everything. But it really put things into perspective, because sometimes you feel like you're on top of the world, and you think, well, gosh, man, I can't fall down from here, and then
That you
bam. But so it's been a great life. I've had a lot of good experiences, and I feel like I'd like to share those experiences with other people, and also some of the entrepreneurs coming up, they struggle and maybe have some hard times, or maybe do really well, and then the bottom falls out, things change, and and it's really overwhelming. But I think what I've learned is that the key is momentum. You just keep moving forward and keep believing in what you're doing. Sometimes you have to change directions, to make sure that you're heading in the right direction. But not giving up, as long as you're still healthy and alive and able to move forward, you haven't lost the game.
Definitely.
So I guess that's why we're here. We just want to inspire other people to try to pursue their dreams and goals, and I think being a serial entrepreneur like us, you're probably a little crazy anyway, but
You got to be
that's
a little
okay.
crazy. Got to be a little crazy.
You have to take chances, and then I guess me personally, I come at business from a more creative standpoint too. I think like deep down, I'm an artist at heart. I got into acting 7 years ago. I haven't done anything exceptional with it yet. I've had a couple of guest star roles on some network series and stuff like that. So I mean, I'm happy, excited, but I want to do a lot more with it. Had a role in a feature film that shot in LA last year that should be out sometime this year.
Can you talk about that one?
Yeah. I don't know if I can say a whole lot about it yet until it's out, but it's
NDA and stuff, sure.
Yeah, it's called Blood Pageant. It's a horror film. It should be pretty cool. It's got Snoop Dogg and
Awesome.
who else is in it? David Chokachi from Baywatch is in it. Stephen Baldwin is in it, and also the girl that played one of the leads on Seventh Heaven back in the day. I can't think of her name, but she's in it too. So it should be cool.
Yeah.
I think it's going to come out mid-year this year.
Awesome.
And I got into. I've always loved writing. It's always been a strength, but most of my writing in the past was all business related. I got into creative writing, specifically screenwriting, about 7 years ago, and written some, several shorts and a few feature-length screenplays, and one of those did really well this past year in the film festival circuit. And I won a lot of awards, and I plan to take that one on to be published as a graphic novel, and then hopefully make it into a film after that. And I've recently been doing some stand-up comedy, which I started doing that as sort of a writing exercise to improve my comedic writing. But I really enjoy it, so I'm just going to keep doing it. It's fun. It's a challenge.
You're getting good at it too.
Sometimes. Sometimes I just stand on stage and eat shit for about 5 minutes. So that's part of it too, I guess.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
So what about you, Jesse? Tell us about you, man.
Well, let's see. I was born kind of from humble beginnings and stuff, but I was kind of lucky. I had two really good parents who were both teachers, and they both were craftspeople and artists and stuff like that. So I've been surrounded by people making things since I was young, and I just grew up thinking, well, this is what you're supposed to do. And it's what ended up being, after 45 years or whatever, what I have to do, obviously, because I'm constantly, trying to build stuff. It's what I really want to do. I want to be in the workshop making stuff and producing that. I've done, from an early age, my mom just sort of took care of me by handing me tape and cardboard and stuff. So I just make stuff all day long, And that kind of turned into like a regular art degree that I got later, and drawing, painting, and sculpting, which I still like doing. I got a little comic book I've been working on forever, just sort of when I have chance, I'll do another
Oh, yeah, hold it
page
up.
or something like that. This is Assassins of Death. One day it'll come out. This is just like a little preview booklet I put out for a while, and it just takes me forever. When it takes you 3 or 4 whole days to do one page, life has to happen. I have to survive,
Right,
so I have to do other stuff. But I've been a filmmaker for a long time. Made my first film in 1995. Took a class at the School of the Arts, like over the summer immersion course. So I learned everything about filmmaking. I knew I wanted to make films, but I did that, and it kind of just shoved everything into my skull about how to do it. Then I went on to get a master's in filmmaking at UNCG, and I've just been making short films and feature films ever since.
Nice.
You can find some online. I'm not a name yet or anything like that. It's just what I want to do more than anything. We just finished. There's a feature we shot last summer around Greensboro called Kill Giggles, and I'm just about finished with the edit of that, and it's going to come out soon. It was pretty fun. We had Vernon Wells, Felissa Rose, and Judith O'Day in it, who have been in a lot of like sort of cult horror films and stuff like that. So it was pretty cool.
We should have some of them on the podcast.
Yeah, definitely.
It'd be great.
Definitely.
Talk about the film, and
I will certainly see, for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be cool. So here we are.
Hey.
And that's what the podcast is really about. It's about entrepreneurs and artists, and even with all the art forms, every art form there's still a business element to that
Definitely.
art form, or there should be. I mean, I guess there doesn't have to be. You can do it for free, but if you want to be able to pay your bills with it, then you have to learn how to make it a business.
I think that's really important. I think no matter what it is if you can't monetize it in some way, then you're not going to be able to continue to do what makes you happy over a long period of time, because you've got to be able to survive.
Right.
And being passionate about something is amazing, but being able to turn it into what supports your lifestyle is the trick. So you can do what you want to be passionate of. You can do what you're passionate about for the rest of your life if you can financially afford to do so.
Yeah, and I think one of the keys is not focusing on the money. Like the money can't be the reason you do, especially in art. I think the money is a good side effect of good art, or something good that you've created. Even in business, like when I look at a new business or start a new venture or something, I'm trying to create something, and the excitement I get in any business is if it's a successful business and it starts to grow, watching that growth and then watching the business itself grow and turn into something where it's producing, and then watching it provide opportunities for other people as it grows, which is really exciting. And I guess art works the same way. Any type of art, when you start getting paid for artwork, that means you're doing something that people appreciate.
Yeah.
And it shows the quality. I'm not trying to put a value on artwork, but it shows the quality of the work.
Right.
It shows that there is some value to that work, that people appreciate enough that you're getting paid to do it.
Definitely.
That is one of the hardest things, to get some money for doing artwork. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I've been trying to figure that out forever, and unfortunately, like, I don't know if my dad was okay. My dad, maybe, sorry, Dad, was sort of maybe against businessmen, which is not a good way to be
Right.
on Earth with humans, and especially if you want to make art and live off of that and not live behind a cubicle. Or I used to work construction. I worked tree service, all those kind of body destroying jobs for years and years. And what I can do all day is make stuff, and to learn how to make money is hopefully something I can learn from you guys.
Yeah,
it would be
totally.
great.
Definitely.
Yeah, because I know a lot of artists are very. I know the whole right brain, left brain thing is not really a thing anymore, but it's still like, I guess you can still think of it that way, as the way people think.
Right.
And I've always been kind of like right in the middle, so I can be very analytical or very artistic, and I can kind of get lost in either one of them. You get in that flow state with. If I'm working on a business project, I can really just get lost in it for hours. Or if I'm working on something that's, art-related, acting or writing, especially writing, I can get lost in that for hours too. To me, it's like the same type of mindset. But I think a lot of artists, they're more just creative,
Right.
and they don't have the analytical side, so they can't. They don't think about the business side as much. It's not that they can't do it. They just they're more, maybe a little more laid back about it, and it doesn't seem like a priority.
Right.
Whereas, I think it's important if even in any kind of art to share that with people.
Definitely.
And I guess, and also you have to put the time in. I think the more time you put into anything, what is it, 10,000 hours, you're a professional at something, an expert.
Yeah. And I almost feel like with the 10,000 hour rule, I feel like the first 10,000 hours, I think there's a series of 10,000 hours. The first 10,000 hours is maybe you're a professional at something, but then what the second 10,000 hours might be the 10,000 that allows you to do that for the rest of your life, right?
Like a master at it, yeah.
Right, a master at it. You're able to monetize it appropriately and find those other things, but and maybe the third set of 10,000 hours is your legacy.
You're a Jedi.
Yeah, you're a Jedi. But maybe that's how you live on forever, right? I mean, like you literally create a legacy if you've put that much time into something.
Right.
It's interesting. So
yeah. Unless it's something you're not good at.
Yeah, then you need to quit while you're ahead. And see, I was left less of the creative as far as like getting lost in that process, like you talked about.
Right. Yeah.
But I can get lost in the creative part of making money off that thing, but just not as excited about getting lost in the actual creation of it.
Right. Yeah.
But I think that's why part of the reason you and I really always worked really well together too is because one, you were really centered, you could do both, but you also covered the creative side for us as well. So
I enjoy that side more, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Something I've noticed, which is sort of, I've had to kind of I have my own business I've had since 2008, 2009, just a sole proprietorship. But what I've learned and tried to make myself understand is building a business is like making a piece of artwork. You're trying to put this thing together and make it work.
Yep.
And that's what kind of drew me into all of that. I mean, I was like, that's when I sort of had an aha moment and like, you're wrong, Dad, and that kind of stuff. But once I kind of understood that, it made me appreciate like building businesses, how ungodly hard it is. It's just as hard as like you're trying to sell something,
Exactly right.
that kind of stuff. It's really, really difficult, and I really admire people that make that stuff work.
Yeah. I think in you as an artist, money doesn't have to be the purpose, but it's a good side effect. It's a good thing because one, it allows you to chase your passions, but it also allows you to take that same money and put it into other things that you're passionate about, which might be any cause that you have. It can be arts in the communities, it can be arts for children, it can be any type of charity that you want to be. Having the money is not the goal, but man, it makes life a lot easier.
It opens a lot of doors.
Yeah, it opens a lot of doors, and you can empower other people to be able to go after their passions in your life.
Paying rent is nice. Being able to pay bills is a good
Eating.
thing. I appreciate all of that.
Definitely. Neil spoke earlier about losing everything and having to start over, and I had that happen, and did very well with business, I believe, at an early age, and and I lost it all. I lost everything, and I spent 18 months in my mother and father's garage. That they closed in and put a piece of carpet on the ground to cover the concrete, just laid it on the ground. It was actually cut out of the bottom of my lake house. And my wife and 2 kids lived there for 18 months while we started over. Yeah, I don't want to do that again. And that was a new appreciation for, like you said, being able to pay the rent or pay the mortgage or pay for gas or food.
Absolutely.
Or how about your children, they to be able to pursue activities, to be able to go after things they're passionate about. That takes money.
Right.
And so it definitely gave me a new appreciation for, I grew up poor, but I think I got to a point where I took it for granted a little bit.
Right.
So losing it really made me appreciate, one, the process, the ability. I look forward to getting up and having something to come do every day.
Right.
Because for a while there, I didn't have anything to do. And it about...
kind of sucks.
Yeah, man, I about lost my mind.
And also, when you have a lot of success early on like that, it's like you start to forget how difficult the struggle was before you got there.
Yeah.
And you start to take it for granted, and then when it's gone, you're like, oh shit, Like,
Yeah.
I kind of had it made. Like,
Yeah.
what? And you think about some of the stuff you get upset about, and you're like, oh, that was ridiculous. Like, that was insane. Like, I had
Yeah.
no reason to be upset about anything.
You're exactly right. It didn't even matter.
I didn't have any problems.
Yeah.
Didn't have any real problems.
We had to create problems out of thin air, right? That's how good life was going.
Life gets too easy, and you just start creating your own
Yeah.
problems.
Yeah. And I think that, and so this is not entirely probably accurate in every scenario, but I think that pain, physical pain, mental pain, financial pain, I think real pain for me really taught me lessons. Like, that's where I really learned. And unfortunately for me, losing that money hurt. And it wasn't the money, it was all the things that
all the work.
It was all the work, all the time I put in. Like, my businesses were my art, like that was my thing. And losing those things, I felt like I lost kind of who I was, and I lost my purpose and my direction, and I kind of had to figure that all back out, right? And that hurt a lot. And because it hurt, I learned from it.
Yeah.
And when I was younger, when I fought and did different things and some boxing and stuff, and I'd get hit in the face, and that hurt physically, right? So that physical pain taught me a lesson, like keep your guard up or duck or bob and weave, right? So financially, I'm learning, physically, I'm learning, and then the mental pain of not just financial loss, but the mental pain of certain things that I've went through, that pain, like, it sears into your memory. And so now I hope, as an adult, I hope that the pain of those memories further motivates me to stay in the right path and
Right.
be conscious of what can go wrong. So
Yeah.
that way I just, I keep working, keep pushing forward, and keep being thankful for the life that I've been able to recover.
Yeah, and also, in a lot of ways, I think coming from humble beginnings is really a blessing. It's something that I think for guys like us, it's a motivator, because, I mean, you really have nowhere to go but up.
Yeah, that's it,
And-
for sure.
And you want to, scratch and claw until you get out of that
right.
bad place. Hopefully, I mean, it could go either way, but
Yeah,
I mean, for people that have motivation, that have, the desire to do bigger things, I think that's, I think it's kind of good to have that adversity at a young age. I remember getting picked on for being poor,
yeah.
being bullied and stuff, and those things hurt when you're a kid, but I think it makes you a stronger person as you get older, and maybe it just, if you're an ambitious person, I think that fuels your
Definitely.
flame, but at the same time, there are some people that aren't wired like us, that it's just a bad thing. So
Yeah.
I'd like to see our society reach a level where it's good for everybody.
Definitely.
Even the people that aren't as ambitious, because everybody's not the same.
No, definitely. I think there's got to be a floor, and the floor shouldn't be
On the floor.
on the floor. It shouldn't be extreme. Like you said, you didn't have the running water inside
Yeah.
the bathrooms. I had that, and I was thankful. The good news about the military base is we went military base to military base, but we definitely had some of those services.
The basic needs.
We had
Yeah.
definitely had the basic needs. I mean, and I was fed. My mother and father worked really hard. Obviously, as you can tell, even today, I wasn't missing meals.
Yeah.
Roof over my head and running water and had. So I mean, honestly, I didn't figure out we were poor until other people started telling me we were poor.
Same here.
So it didn't dawn on me. And then as I grew in life, and then I can look back and I can go, okay, we definitely struggled. We definitely struggled, and I kind of appreciate that, like you say. I kind of wonder with my children. I lost everything, but the ones that were alive were so young. I'm not sure that they're gonna remember that at all.
Right.
So I kind of wonder sometimes, because they're living a good life. So.
Yeah.
I wonder if they appreciate it, or if they will when they're older.
I have the same thought with my daughter too, because she has such a great life, and I think, wow, she has no idea, like, what my life was like as a kid, and I had two parents, which is incredible, and they both love me. We were dysfunctional sometimes as a family, but still having two parents that are together and they love you and have a home, it's still a big thing, and
Definitely.
And we always had food. We had basic needs. I think we had maybe some government services too when I was really young. Parents both worked. They're both hardworking, blue collar people. But like I said, it was during a recession. So
Right.
It was tough. And sometimes dinner was pinto beans and cornbread, but it was food.
Yeah.
But yeah, with Isla, my daughter, I think I don't know. I'll sit there with her sometimes, and and I'm thinking, wow, like your life is so different from mine.
Yeah.
Like her perspective is, and I want to make sure she appreciates things as she gets older. Like I don't know, and I guess that's probably the same worries and concerns you have as a parent.
Definitely. Definitely.
But,
When did you guys start, like, in life, like, working and stuff? Like, I got a permit to work when I was 14 and just went right into, like, weed eating and mowing lawns and all that kind of stuff. What did y'all do?
I was helping my dad mow the yard when I was probably 8 or 9, and then mow my grandparents' yard, my grandmother's yard. Actually, my grandfather passed away when I was 6, or 7. But then when I turned 14, I got my worker's permit. This as soon as we could get it back then.
Right.
And I started working at a seafood restaurant, washing dishes. And, like when I was, a kid, like all my clothes and stuff were mostly from yard sales or hand-me-downs from friends. So when I started working, I was like, oh, yeah, I can buy my own clothes now. So it was kind of nice. I never had like the fancy shoes or anything until I started working for myself or working on my own.
Yeah.
And I never stopped. When I started working at 14, I've worked ever since.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So for me, I figured out at an early age I needed money. I wanted money, and I think probably in that 8, 9, 10, I did some what I'll call manual labor.
Sure.
And I really figured out early on that I did not like that.
Right.
I did not like it.
I didn't either.
It was not for me. Now, I would do it as a means to an end, but it was not what I wanted to do. And I figured out pretty quickly that I was a fairly intelligent child, and as you did with the school business, I started to come up with my version of businesses, ways to make some money. And at 14, I definitely went and got a worker's permit. First job was at Napoli's Pizza in Randolph Mall in Ashburn, North Carolina. Robert, I believe his name was Robert, the guy that owned it. And I was washing dishes, and I hated that too. Especially the things above the pizza ovens that all the grease got in. You had to clean in between the things. It would cut my fingers. I hated it.
Did you guys have a dishwasher, or did you have like the 3 sinks?
We had 3 sinks.
That's what we had to do.
Yeah, and I oh man, it was rough, man. That was tough. That was tough. And again, those things, while I appreciated them, and same thing, I worked, started working at 14, and if there were gaps in that in employment to this date, I don't recall them. Yeah. But I appreciated the job. I appreciated the income. But all that did was further motivate me to figure out a way to work smarter. Work smart. Yeah. I think everybody says work smarter, not harder. I think you got to do both.
Right.
You got to work really hard, but you also be intelligent about it. And at 14, you just don't have a whole lot of options.
Yeah, ideas are much more valuable than just physical work.
I'm not sure who said it,
both.
But I'll take credit. I'd rather trade ideas for millions than dollars for hours.
Right. Yeah. 100%. And we've both owned restaurants.
Yeah.
Since then.
Oh, and so
it's not been the most successful endeavors.
No. I mean, and everybody says don't do a restaurant. There's restaurants that are successful, but I really believe it takes a passion for that.
Yes.
And
I agree.
there's a lot to it, and bars have their own set of headaches. I'd much rather have a bar, or something along the lines, just because of not dealing with the restaurant aspect, solely surviving off the food.
Right.
But yeah, they're not high on my list for businesses I want to be in.
How many businesses have you owned? It's got to be in the 30s.
Yeah, I mean I'd say 30s and 40s. I mean we've got various real estate companies that have owned everything from single family homes to commercial buildings, to strip centers, apartment complexes, things like that, to ATM companies and security companies and different things. But currently, I think I've got businesses in 11 states currently and growing.
Wow.
And we do a lot. And I think, and just like you were saying earlier, alluded to, not all of them have been successful. And I think that's also part of it. Is as we go, it's funny how we start to figure out some of the common pitfalls that people and ourselves have fallen into, and you know not to do it again.
Yeah.
you and I can look at an opportunity and instantly we're asking different questions and we're looking at it differently than somebody that's doing the business for the first time.
Right. Yeah.
You know, because
is this a good idea, or is it?
Yeah.
Or is it the right time? Sometimes you can have a great idea and it's just the wrong time.
That's right.
I invested into a food business a few years ago, and it was a great idea. We didn't maybe choose the exact right business model for it, but it was an incredible idea, and it could have been very successful.
Yeah.
But it was just the wrong time.
I think you're a decade ahead of yourself too, because it's a very
half a decade maybe.
Yeah, half a decade. It's a proliferant business at this point.
Yeah, there are other people doing it almost identically, and it's doing great.
Yeah,
so,
it's doing awesome.
you know, but you can't win them all.
No,
as
man.
long as you win most of them, that's the
That's
key.
the key. Well, and
Yeah.
one of the things to that, and you don't want to put blame on anybody else, but one of the problems that we've both ran into, I know I've ran into, sometimes when you're, I love to find a business that somebody else is passionate about, and it's not an expertise that I have, and you can kind of help them chase their passion. I love that process, but the negative that's there, the potential for negative is that if that person isn't as focused as you are, as driven as you are, if they're not willing to make the sacrifices you are, sometimes some of the success of that business is going to rely directly on their efforts.
I think also with that, that's a good point. I think with those situations too, there's a difference between someone being passionate about something and then someone wanting an opportunity.
Yeah.
Because if they just want an opportunity but they're not passionate about that thing, whatever it is, whether it's a restaurant or some other type of business, then it's probably not going to succeed because they don't really, they're not into it fully. They're not fully invested in it. You know?
Right.
So if it's something they're passionate about, I think it has a good chance if they if they have expertise in that area too. You know, but if they're just wanting an opportunity, but they're not wanting to put anything into it,
Yeah.
and they're not an expert in it, I think it has a big chance of failing.
That's true.
Because I've done both with people, and you know, if someone's truly passionate about something and they have expertise in it, it'll do well.
That's true.
Typically, but then I've had plenty of the other.
Well, I think, you know, are they passionate? And that's the thing we got to figure out: are they passionate about that opportunity, or are they just passionate about an opportunity? Meaning,
Right.
that they would take any opportunity, and that's a owning a business out of desperation or chasing a dream out of desperation. That's a quick route to failure too.
Right.
You know, and so you and I've over the years we've had to deal with that, and so we start to figure those things out. And it's funny, we talk to people, and you and I come to natural conclusions almost instantly about things, and they're looking at what their version of what the business should be from a much different angle, because they're just not there. I think you and I have got our 10,000 hours in probably by our mid-20s, and that's what I think we're on the second 10,000.
Yeah, probably 20-some thousand.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and also on that point, I'm just lost. I lost it. Where'd it go? Lost my train of thought.
Well, I know what you're talking about, like with like the whole passion thing. I mean, that's a bad investment if you're investing in this person. They
That's
don't.
right.
They kind of like, well, maybe I want to do it. You know, that's going to be totally like no.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
want to.
right.
They want to do it until they have to. They want to do something. They're passionate about it until it's inconvenient for them. And I'm not picking on any one person. You know, I mean, literally, it's some. You know, I think anything to be successful, not just business. Period. Just be successful. Period. Whatever it is you're trying to do requires sacrifice. There are going to be times
Right.
when you're going to miss the family event. You're going to miss your friend's birthday. You're going to miss your child's thing.
Sure.
You're going to have to make a conscious decision to let someone else down in their eyes because you're passionate about the thing that you're doing.
Right.
And it requires that time, effort, and energy. And it requires that sacrifice. And over a long period of time, if you're willing to make those tough decisions and work your tail off and be intelligent about what you're doing. And I think if you can do those things, you're going to be successful over a long period. So it's delayed gratification. But a lot of times people say they're passionate about things. But they're passionate about it until it becomes inconvenient.
Right.
They like the idea of it.
Yeah.
You know, and ideas are great. I've liked the ideas of
man.
many things, but you know, we live in a world though we can kind of like taste it for a while and like nope, that's not what I want and stuff.
Yeah.
But like filmmaking, making art is like what I have to do. I've done it to the detriment of myself, you know, just because that's what you got to do, you know. If you're sick, but this is the day you got everybody meeting and you're going to do it, well, you better go and do it sick,
right.
you know.
That's right.
Yeah. And what I was wanting to say was, I think a lot of the problem too is fear.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people can't deal with fear and anxiety very well because when you're an entrepreneur and your whole livelihood is based on what you produce, the things that you create, there's a lot of anxiety involved. There's a lot of fear, and we all feel these things. But I think some people just can't handle it. Like it's just overwhelming, and like for me, I can be all in and tiptoeing on the edge, and if I fall off, I fall off. Like I just pick myself up and do it again, but I just do it differently. I'm not afraid to go down with the ship, but a lot of people are. And a lot of people will jump ship and let you go down, with it. So I think that's a big thing with being an entrepreneur. A lot of people want to start their own business, but I think you have to realize it's a big risk. It's always a big risk. You always, and if you're not willing to risk everything, then you shouldn't do it, because most likely you're eventually going to lose everything in business.
That's right.
Because I think it seems like that's just part of a natural progression of the process.
Yeah, there's very few people that we've met that have been wildly successful that haven't lost everything at least once.
And if you're that person, then hey, you're just super lucky, man.
Yeah, and congrats to you. And what I would tell you is, if you're still alive and still breathing, your time still may come.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and it's just part of that process. But I don't know. And it's not about, for us, it's, we're trying to mitigate our risk.
Right.
Right. And so it's from your perspective, it's the creative process. It's the creation of this business, of this thing. And then the other side of that is can we monetize it properly? Can this business function?
Right.
Can it, and then you and I fully understand what the expenses are. Right. And I think when we talk with other people, we help kind of bring that to light. And then we look at it, and you put all those things together. And if you got somebody that's passionate and driven and willing to sacrifice, and then we've got a creative process, and we've got the business side of it down, we've got the monetary side of it down, then you've got a really good chance of making something work, right? That should be the starting point of the business. If you can get all those check boxes, then maybe this is a business we should consider.
Right.
And no matter what that is, if it's art or mowing lawns or plumbing, I mean, literally, I love all business. Any opportunity to make money, I'm interested.
Yeah, and I mean, you always want to mitigate your risk as
Definitely.
much as possible. You don't want to just jump into something that seems like a great idea or you're excited about it. You have to think about the potential of it to do well, and there's still the risk that it won't, or that you'll fail at it.
Yeah.
And I think true entrepreneurs they embrace the fear and the anxiety. I think that's what motivates us.
Oh yeah.
I think we get afraid of something like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
Because it scares the shit out of me. I want to do it. I want to see if I can beat this thing.
We can do it. We're motivated by others too. I've noticed that too, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs that are successful, that's what they see somebody else is doing something. We go. An entrepreneur goes somewhere, a business person goes somewhere, and they see something that they take exception to. They're like, wow, they've really done a good job here. And it motivates you to go, I could do this.
Right.
And maybe I can do this better. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
how are they not? Where are their shortcomings? Like, what are they not doing right?
That's right. Because I don't know that there's anything new under the sun. I mean, everything, for the most part, we're just improving on processes that are already there. Right.
For now.
I mean,
this with AI and science and technology, things may get crazy over
That's
the next
true.
couple decades, but yeah.
Yeah. For now.
Yeah.
So and that's, I don't know. It's really fun. It's really interesting, and like that's. I find myself when I was younger, during my free time, you might value hanging out and doing other things. As you get older and you really get into this, I really value the time where maybe I am with my wife, we're doing something, but I'm in that business. I'm in this restaurant. We're at Louis Vuitton, we're wherever, and I'm spending some money, and I'm, in my mind, this business has done an amazing job because they're getting me to part ways with something I've worked really hard for.
Right.
Right. I'm exchanging value with them. And for their product or service. And so how did they do that? And I think that's really interesting. And so that's this whole system that everybody, whether they know it or not, participates in. And that's what I really like.
Yeah, I guess in some ways that's sort of like seeing through the veil, of society, like how everything works. And I think we naturally think that way.
Right.
As I've gotten older, though, I'll be 40 this year. I think for me, I also try to enjoy the moments, though. I try to not think about opportunities in business sometimes, and just I'm there with my daughter and my wife, and just try to just say, oh, this is a great moment, you know, because every moment's fleeting. It's gone instantly. It's always instantly a memory.
I got to work on that.
So
I got to work on that. I was at Disney and I was asking the parking attendant what the capacity was for cars, and then I was doing the math at let's say $20 a car and 100,000 cars, and so I'm sitting here going, okay, Disney's making X per day just for people to park their cars. And I'm there with my wife and my kids and my family and my brothers and my parents, and it was this awesome trip. And a lot of my trip was spent, man, what's the guy that owns this house, what's he making to rent these year round, the parking lot, the Disney, what are they making? And so sometimes I get lost in that, and I need to just take a breath and slow down and enjoy the moment. I'm working on it. I'm aware of it.
Yeah. And some of these things may be somewhat out of our control too.
That's true.
We're just wired a certain way. A lot of physicists will tell you that free will is not a real thing. Like we just do what we do because that's who we are.
Right.
So, and
It's
there's
interesting.
probably some of that,
No, there's definitely. What makes you tick? Like why are you the way you are?
What's an idea?
Yeah.
Ideas come out of nowhere. It's like
Yeah.
some magical thing that just pops in there.
Yeah.
It's like, where'd that come from? It's like a gift from the universe or something.
Definitely.
But it's like that with writing too. When you're writing, if you really get into the flow state, it's like I don't even feel like I wrote this. Like it wrote itself through me.
You're an instrument.
Yeah. So who knows what that is, or how much control we really have over these things.
Right.
I think that's the important. We go back to the floor for society. I think that's one of the important things about making sure that everyone has their basic needs met. When I was younger, I was really conservative. Now I've gotten more liberal on social issues as I've gotten older, and the reason I feel that way is because our whole country, and eventually the whole world, is a community of people. We're all the same thing.
That's right.
And I think if everyone has their basic needs, then you open up a doorway for more people to be inspired and do things that they do enjoy, that they are passionate about, and they don't necessarily have to be successful with it, but some people will.
Yeah.
And I look at like my parents. They've worked their whole life doing really difficult jobs, for factories, making not that much money.
Right.
And like my dad, he's a very intelligent person. He's very talented. He could have been an architect or something, but just didn't have the resources to make that happen.
Right.
And I feel like it would give those blue collar people, people in those situations, sort of maybe a boost.
Right.
Or at least allow them to live a good life. And if that's all they wanted, that's fine. They've got that good basic life. Or if they want more than that, then they can have more.
Definitely.
And it would make everything better. It would make our whole society better, because crime is really a result of a lack of resources.
Yeah.
People commit crimes because they don't have anything to live for, but because they don't have all the resources they need.
Right.
Because they're angry or they're frustrated.
Yeah.
I think that would actually give people like us more opportunity, because, when you're an entrepreneur, a lot of your business is based on consumers.
Yeah.
Anyway, whether it's people consuming your art, or if you own different businesses, consuming whatever products or services those businesses have. And when people are happy and they have all their basic needs, they consume more stuff.
No, you're right.
So I think we would, people like us would do better in that
you're right.
society.
I think that the booming economy right now is evidence of that too. When things are going really well, people just consume more.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And
Because when things are bad, people want to save and they want to just.
That's right.
They just want to survive.
That's right.
But even in our best economies, there's still a lot of people in our society that are just trying to survive, and that seems crazy that we live in probably the wealthiest nation in the world, and we still have. We rebuilt entire nations, and we still have economically depressed areas in our society.
That's right.
Where people struggle, and it just seems like it just shouldn't happen that way.
I was a professor for 17 years, and I had to live paycheck to paycheck, you know. And I grew up saying, oh, become a professor, you can make enough, you can support a family and all that. Then when I came to my turn, nope. It's like, oh, wow, you know, so it's eye-opening as to, you know, what can happen. But it's just part of my drive, too. I think what you're talking about, like fear and all that kind of stuff, you could either choke and not do anything, or you could take that risk and learn. And it's important. Passion's great.
Yeah.
But if you have passion but you're not willing to, or you unable to like learn and progress, you know, you're not going to go very far. What I learned is making mistakes has been one of the most valuable lessons for me.
100%.
In all of this. And I've made so many mistakes in filmmaking, but I try not to repeat those. I'm like, well, in the next movie, we need to make new mistakes. None of those old mistakes can happen again, you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
And you know, and I'm not going to say who, but we had a friend, one of my younger brother's best friends growing up, his mother, stay-at-home mother, raising 2 children and very, very, very limited resources. Both kids went through college, both graduated. You know, she made sure that they got to school, even though she had no car. You know, like there was all these things that she did, and I think for me, a person like that, a woman like that, that was a strong mother of 2, that raised 2 respectful, hardworking young men, right? Like that. I wish there was more help for her, a higher floor for her, right? I start to get a little for the people that are making bad choices. If you can get ahead of it, if you can give them that opportunity and raise the floor before they've made so many bad choices that their only option is to continue making bad choices, I think that'd be really helpful, because I'm less sympathetic to those people at that point,
Right.
that are in that category that just continue to make bad decisions. But then I wonder, is that can that be changed by solving the resource problem?
I think I think about that too. I've thought about that a lot. I think some people. I mean, it goes back to what scientists are saying, that, you know, a lot of times we are wired a certain way, and we're sort of predisposed to those types of things. We can't. There's a lot of things that we can't control.
Right.
You know, and obviously you and I we don't think normally.
Right.
You know, there's probably something wrong with us. But
At least one thing.
But, you know, I think, I think when you see people that continually, repeatedly make bad choices, it's almost like a sickness or like a mental disorder.
Yeah.
And I think, well, you think, okay, well, here's the thing. If that person had all their basic needs met,
Yeah.
they had a house, they had medical, they had a certain amount of money to live on, they had all their food they needed, just all the basic needs, they could make bad choices. It'd be okay, because they still have a place to go home to.
That's right.
They still have all the stuff they need.
Yep.
You know, they're not going to starve to death. They're not going to be on the side of the road,
Right.
begging for money and food or drugs.
Yep.
And they're not going to be, or they won't move to California and be part of the, 80,000 homeless people there. You know,
Right.
I think it would solve a lot of those problems, and it may, maybe one day they make a right choice.
Yeah.
Like they say, there's, maybe part of their bad choices is like a self-deprecating thing, but then when all your basic needs are there, or maybe they continue to make bad choices, but they have all their basic needs, so they're not a burden on society.
Yeah.
They can just continue to live that way.
No, you're right. And I know that bad decisions are not exclusive to people without means. Obviously,
We've made bad decisions.
Yeah, I made bad decisions, and when I lost everything, that was, I can blame everything on what happened to me, the outside forces that I can't control, but that's not what I can do. What should happen is I should take responsibility for the decisions I made after those things happened to me, right?
Right.
And I made bad decisions leading up to those things. I was distracted, and I sacrificed a whole lot to get there, but at some point I started to sacrifice less, and my business sacrificed because of it.
Right.
And I was making poor decisions, and the great thing about making poor decisions when you've got some means is that you'll quickly lose them.
Right. That's true.
And not everybody has. See, I had a floor, and my floor was provided by my parents. I had a roof over my head, I had food in my belly, and my children were taken care of, heat and air. I had a place to live for 18 months, right, for free, right? And and not everybody has that. So what would happen if I didn't have that? So that, and I think that's where what you're talking about, the floor, like we've got to bring it up to where even if you make mistakes, you still need certain basic things, right?
Right.
And I'm not saying that you should live the life of your dreams without the effort and the sacrifice and taking the risk, but at the same point, I do think everybody needs what I had, which was that fail-safe, that built-in fail-safe.
You brought up a good point about, even when you lost everything, you still had a family that could help you.
That's right.
And actually, on the Rogan podcast, he just had a guest on there that said the number one leading cause of homelessness is loss of family. So a lot of these people, there's a lot of mental illness in the homeless community, but also there are a lot of people in that situation that they've lost everything, and they don't have any family. They have nowhere to go. So so that's a big big part of it. Yeah.
It is.
And that goes back to, I think, what you can and can't control.
Yeah.
Stuff like that you can't control. It's out of your control. Like, you were fortunate enough to have people that could take you in at your lowest point, and
that's right.
And also you weren't on drugs, or you didn't have these problems where you were just being non-productive. You literally spent that entire 18 months rebuilding yourself.
That's right.
And trying to make a new plan.
They were awesome because it gave me the environment I needed to. I needed to be able to know that my kids weren't going to starve, that I wasn't going to starve, my wife was going to get fed. We had a shelter.
Yeah.
They gave me that those basic needs, so that I could really spend my time focusing on where do I go from here? How do I get back in the right direction, on the right path, right? And people don't have that, so that's a very interesting
And how do you
point.
do it better?
And how do I do it better, exactly? Because there's a lot of mistakes that I made when I look back at it and I go, I don't want to do that again. And it's funny, you and I, we'll be having conversations with other business people or other artists, other entrepreneurs, other people that are passionate about whatever it is they're pursuing, and you and I will come to a conclusion that they haven't come to yet. And the reason for that is the experiences that you and I have had, those wrong decisions, like Jesse was saying earlier, like, hey, we're going to make mistakes, but we're not going to make that mistake. Let's not do that mistake.
I've been there.
I've been there. That's a bad decision.
Yeah.
So, it's very interesting. And so for what do the people do that don't have that network? And then you know what else, too? I had 3 younger brothers. I've got a mother and father. And sometimes you need a swift kick in the ass, and they gave that to me, too, when I needed it. So they were there, and they were helping, and they were making sure that that my basic needs were met, but they were also, motivating me. And brothers motivate me the way that brothers do, and your mother in a more nurturing way, motivating way she does, and your father going, come on, this is not you. Get up, get out of bed, get back to it, get on the horse. This is what you signed up for. You said to me, he'd say, hey son, you used to say all the time, I'll risk it all, and if I lose it all, I'll start over tomorrow. And I did say that, right? And so, hey, guess what? You lost it all. It's tomorrow. It's time to get up. It's time to get it done. This is what you signed up for. So some of that is that's part of that network that you have, that support system to be able to say, hey, pick yourself up and get back to it. And so the people that don't have that,
True, yeah. I think you have to have people in your life that call you on your bullshit.
Yeah.
Support it.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you can get to a self-pity thing and get really distracted.
Definitely.
And also I think another trap too is sometimes when people lose everything, they feel like they've really lost everything when you haven't.
That's right.
You've got tons of knowledge that you've gained from whatever you've done that you should just reuse. It's like, if I knew what I know now back then, well, no, you know what you know now.
That's
so
right.
use it.
That's right.
And we've done it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I hate to make a video game analogy, but for all my gaming friends out there, you don't play a game one time and die and quit, right?
Right.
You figure out exactly why you died that time, and you press start and you do it again, and you don't die the same way. And usually you're going to make a little further in life, right? You're going to make a little further in that game before you die again. And rinse, wash, repeat. You do it over and over and over, and it's discouraging sometimes, but it's really funny. Eventually you're going to beat the game, right? Eventually you're going to figure out all the roadblocks and the impasses and the tricks and the things that you've got to do and the things to avoid.
Right.
And that's business. Like, that's life. That's these things. But we just have to understand that going into it. You have to anticipate that you're going to run into problems, and it's not the end of the world. You're going to
That's
lose. You're going to have to start over. And I think that's, as I went through this process, as we went through this process, realizing that opened my eyes. I enjoyed this process, and I expect that even though I know we're doing everything we can to mitigate risk, I know that we're going to have ups and downs, and I expect it, and we plan for it.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, how far are we going to make it before we die again, right?
Right.
So it's an interesting process, and I think some things we talked about what we like to do, and I like business. I have figured out that I like to educate people on business itself.
Yeah, it's fun to share information.
Yeah, it's really fun to have somebody else that's passionate, and their passion may be more an artistic passion, but I get excited about helping them learn how to survive off that.
I do too. Yeah, I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid, I would see really successful people, and I would just walk up to them and ask them what they do. Sometimes they were assholes about it, but a lot of times they were nice. A lot of times they would tell me what they did, and it was just inspiration. It's like little bits of information that you can apply to your own life, and I've always taken the time to talk to people if they ask me about how you did something or do you have any advice or I've always taken the time to share because I just feel like it's good karma. It's going to come back.
Yeah.
Teaching something makes you better at doing that thing.
That's true.
That's been my thing. And what I've always told my students is like, and what you were saying earlier, Daniel, is like, the more you do, the better you get. Yeah. Most of the time. There are the where it doesn't work out that well sometimes, but most of the time, just about anybody, if they keep doing it and they're persistent, they will get better at it.
Oh, yeah.
Video games, of course, and everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. And I think one of and not to shout out to Jeff Schwartz, but when we were growing up, I think early on in our lives, he was a business person that was around that I got to meet and you got to meet, and I learned a lot of things from him. And he was one of the people that if you were lucky enough that he would share some of his time and his information with you, he'd point you in the right direction. So like someone like him, there's a few people over my life that stood out that would give me extra time, right? And then I know, you've had the same experiences, right? And I think I had this really unfair advantage too. My father was very entrepreneurial. He's in the Army, obviously, so he went in at 17 and got special exceptions. We grew up really poor. He was from a poor family. We went in the military at 17 with a new wife and a new son, and but he was motivated. I don't know why he was motivated, but he was motivated, right? And he started doing these things when he would put his first 10 hours in with the Army, and then when he would get off, he'd be looking for something else to do. And sometimes he had jobs, but most of the time those things were things that he was doing as an entrepreneur to try and figure this thing out, right? And he got an education, so it's really awesome. I remember at like 8 and 9 and 10 years old and 11 years old being in the car with him. I don't know why I would be with him. Maybe that was just how we spent time together. And he would be driving, and we'd be going to a meeting. We'd be going to something, and he'd go to some event. And I remember ones where he was just a spectator. He was the guy in the crowd, and I remember hearing, some of the positive things that would be said at those things. And then eventually I remember my father being one of the guys that was up speaking and motivating. And so it was really awesome for me at an early age. Like I had this passion for business, I guess. I didn't know what it was, but I also got to see him pursuing this. And so I think it gave me like this unfair advantage. So I'm really thankful for that too. So
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So even though we didn't have any means, especially early on, I had a family that was trying to, attempting to better their situation.
It's good, yeah.
That example, having, family members and friends who are good examples in life have always helped me. Like I had good parents that helped me a lot, how to just sort of be independent and all of that kind of stuff. And they were really good to me too. I didn't get punished a lot, but I didn't really do a lot of wrong, quote unquote, things too much. But then friends of mine who I admire who got their shit together, I started like seeing what their habits are, and it kind of affected me in good ways. Like in college, I had a friend that made lists every day of everything he had to do, and then I started doing that.
Yeah.
And it just helped out. And I still do it to this day. I got a big whiteboard in my house at home, and I list all the crap I have to do that day and the next day, and it just sort of helps me.
It's good
with that stuff,
Yeah.
Yeah, I keep up with all that on my phone, but it's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Yeah, your dad is unique. Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
cool that he's very similar to you in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
and then different in other ways. But he has that business ambitious drive. My dad, he's sort of like me as far as, or I guess I'm sort of like him in the aspect that he can be very analytical or very artistic, because he's a good artist too. He's a very good artist as far as like classical art,
Right.
drawing and painting. But he's also very analytical because he can do very detailed technical drawings and stuff.
Right.
But how did we get here?
I don't know.
I think it's about teaching or something. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, sharing.
Yeah, sharing, and I don't know, just the influences. So, when do you think, just, and I don't know if I've ever asked you this, when do you think you knew you wanted to be a business person, entrepreneur, or to have your own thing, your own creation? Do you remember when that was?
I think I've always known that.
Yeah.
I think I was probably 6.
I was sitting here thinking about that. I was like, I don't know when it clicked. I'm not sure. It just was always there.
The oldest memory I have of anything business related per se is I drew a picture of a deer with markers, and at the bottom of the picture, instead of signing it, I drew a circle and wrote like 5 cents, and and sold it to my uncle. And that's when he started. That was the first time he talked to me about anything business. He's like, "Oh, you should do this professionally one day. You should be an artist."
Awesome.
And then he, after that point, he's always talking to me about business every week.
Yeah.
Little bits, But then, and I think also, like, I remember when I have another memory of when I was really young, because it was in our old house, so it was pre 8 years old. I remember beating on a bucket, like playing the drums, and I was like, man, I want to be like a famous person one day or something, or just be really successful.
Right.
And then, later on in life, I'm not sure if your parents would say things to you like this, but they would say, "Oh, wait till you get in the real world," or life's not easy, or all these things. And I was like, well, that sounds like a shitty deal. I was like, I don't want to sign up for that deal.
I don't want any part of that.
And so I think even when I was in high school, I remember like I worked when I was 16, I started working at a furniture factory. And I would see how many hours I could work in a week to see how much money I could make in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And in the summertime, I'd come in some days at like 6 in the morning and work till like 11 at night. And we made like $6 an hour or something.
Yeah.
So, but I would I could clear like almost $600 in 2 weeks working a shitty job.
Yeah.
And I was like, and that was a lot of money when you're in high school.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So, I feel like I've always been very ambitious, and I don't mind. I like working, so.
Yeah, and I tried that too, and I think that this was this self-defeating process that you and I figured out is that I was doing some version of that. So at 14, we were allowed to work. The state says, "Oh, you're allowed to work, I think 20 hours or 15 hours." I can't remember what it was. So so I got that in, and then I figured out maybe I could do other things that weren't necessarily employed by other people. I was out doing things myself. An example, I wasn't doing this, but an example might be mowing a lawn, right, on the side, in addition to your job. But as I aged, I started doing the same thing. I was, working RBC Centura during the day. At night, from 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the morning, I was working at UPS. And then I was trying to figure out, I've got this amount of time. What else can I fit in for a few hours, right, so that I can try and make more money? But this self-defeating process became you don't have enough time to make the money you need to make. So what you've got to do is figure out all these experiences and try to figure out a way to take control of the time so that you're not exchanging dollars for hours, literally. Because that's what we were doing. It's just dollars for hours.
Yes, that's it. And you only have so many hours.
Yeah, and you work one time, you get paid one time.
Right. Yeah.
If you create a good business, you work one time, you might be able to get paid forever.
That's true, yeah. Yeah, or good art or whatever.
Yeah, good art, yeah, exactly.
And I think in business, one of the big keys, if you want to be very successful in business, I think you have to find ways to duplicate your efforts.
Yeah, definitely.
You create something, you get it to function properly and run smoothly, and then you start to hire people to run that thing for you.
Yeah.
And that way you still watch it, you still make sure it's operating properly, but then you can move your time somewhere else.
That's right.
And do that same thing with something else.
Yeah.
And just keep reproducing that same
Yeah.
activity. And then with art, it's a little different because it takes your time to create something. Like if I write something, it takes my time to write it. But, that could, a screenplay could turn into a graphic novel.
That's right.
And then could be sold to millions of people.
Yep.
Or it could be turned into a film, which could go to millions of people,
That's
and
right.
then you get residual from that. So, I mean, even those things, you still look at it the same way. Like,
Yeah.
how can I duplicate this product?
Definitely. A
Um,
good piece of art. They're going to make prints of it,
Yeah,
right?
right.
There's definitely ways to monetize anything, and whatever someone's art is, whatever their thing is. I think there's definitely ways to monetize it and and move forward. But that process, figuring that out, was eye-opening for me because I can't work 24 hours a day, but in theory, my money can, my business can, my art can.
Right, yeah.
These other things can, but I physically can't because I've got to go to sleep at some point, and you got to have a life at some point.
Yeah. It goes back to the thing, like you don't do it for the money, but the money shows you that what you're doing has value to it.
That's right. That's right.
Because, I mean, I could paint a painting, and it could be okay.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody's going to buy it, but if I spend 10,000 hours painting paintings,
Oh yeah.
then it would be really good, and people would really buy it. But you have to put in that effort, too, to make it valuable.
100%.
Yeah.
I think it's almost an insult for you to get rewarded without the effort.
Yeah. Like with writing. I mean, that most recent screenplay that I wrote, I spent hundreds of hours on that thing probably,
Yeah.
in all the rewrites.
Yeah.
I know one weekend I spent 40 hours just between Friday and Sunday writing. That's all I did. I was like, I'm just going to write. So I'd write, and I'd probably write for like 4 or 5 hours, eat some food, write again,
Yeah.
and then sleep, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, if you got rewarded, so let's take a child. You reward a child for effort, right? For the attempt to do something, right? To encourage it. The problem is if you do that with an adult, like if they get unfairly rewarded without the sacrifice, without the effort, without the time, I almost feel like it's a disservice to them. But I feel like they're going to feel like it's a disservice, like almost like I didn't earn this. Whereas if you put the time into it, right? Like I can speak to the value of whatever my thing is, my product or service, right? The thing that I'm passionate about. And the passion is going to come through because I've committed and I've sacrificed so much of my life to chase that endeavor, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that also helps create a value for the other person that's going to they work hard, they exchange their time for money, right, in some way. And they're going to give you some of their money, which essentially they're giving you some of their time,
right?
Because they value what you've done. And I think that process is cheapened if someone's unfairly rewarded, right? And so, like you said, if you just painted something today, or you drew something today, I'd say you do a much better the job than I would. But at the same point, if you're compared against somebody that has the 10,000 hours in, the art is probably not going to look anywhere close to the same.
No way. Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll buy that guy's art.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you yours. Hey, man, good job. You did better than I am, and I'm going to buy his.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's cute, man.
Dude, good job,
Nice.
man.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Glad you could do that.
There is, though, the thing about like natural skill over somebody that doesn't have it. Like I've
Well,
seen
that's
plenty
true.
of people
Yeah.
that put
Yeah.
like hundreds of hours into something and it still looks like shit. And I've seen somebody that put in like 5 or 10 and
Yeah.
it's brilliant.
Yeah, you have to decide if it's something you're talented at.
Yeah.
And generally,
Right.
there's a lot of something behind that, like
Yeah.
years of work and
Yeah.
knowing how to do it and,
Yes,
and all
yeah.
that kind of stuff
Oh, yeah.
for sure.
I think there's definitely some natural talent, and it's easy for me to make the analogy and the comparison to sports. There might be people out there that are naturally athletic or naturally gifted or naturally better at putting the ball in the basket, right? But they still have to work on the craft, right? Because they're not
That's
going to
true,
know. They've still got to work on fundamentals and work on the craft. They may be naturally talented and start from a higher point,
Right.
but I feel like, and like you're saying with the artist, if you've got that natural gift for it and you don't put the work in, man,
You're never going to
Worthless.
master it.
You're absolutely
you're
worthless.
And I
You're
see a
worthless.
lot of people do that. There's
Yeah.
a lot of people that have incredible talents, and they don't use them. I think there's a fear aspect to that too. Also, I've seen some incredibly talented people that could easily be very successful at whatever they're talented at, but as soon as they start to pursue it, they run into something else because
Yeah.
they're afraid of it. It's like I think they can almost see like, oh, I might be really, really good at this.
Right.
I may be really successful at this. But man, maybe I should do something else because I'm
Yeah.
kind of scared of that.
Yeah, and maybe.
It's like they get overwhelmed with their ability.
Yeah, and I think sometimes too, I think they get lost in that dream, and they take it so far down the future of what all it could be, and maybe that's part of what you're talking about. Just it becomes overwhelming.
Maybe, yeah,
Yeah.
something.
And
It's
and
a
maybe,
strange phenomenon. I've seen it happen to a few people.
Yeah, and maybe they're their own. I always tell people on some level they're their own worst enemy, right?
Yeah.
Because nobody's going to beat you like you, right?
Right.
And I've had
Yeah.
people that I felt like, for whatever reason, they've got all the makings of being great, but for some reason they make a different decision. They just choose not to go down that path. And I always wonder what that was. Like,
It's got to be fear.
yeah, and this is partially a millennial belief, but I feel like on some level. And I'm technically a millennial by certain people's math. I'm on the very, very
Generation X.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah.
So I'm going to insult myself slightly, but I'm on the very top end of that. But supposedly, but I feel like too is for whatever reason the younger the generation is, I feel like there's less willingness to sacrifice, and maybe that's just my opinion. Maybe that's just the people that I've been around.
I think it may be because things are so easy now. Like, I mean, they're not. They are, but they're not. Like,
Right.
I think in some ways opportunities are less available.
Right.
Maybe, but society is a lot safer. It sounds counterintuitive because of the media and all the stuff that we see, but society is statistically a lot safer now than it ever has been.
Yeah.
Like when you and I were kids, it was way more dangerous.
Oh yeah.
Like, I just think about the way that we lived as kids, like the things we were allowed to do, and I have
Yeah.
a bit about that too. Like, our house when I was a kid was covered in asbestos siding and lead paint.
Yeah.
You know, so like, it was just a different time.
Oh yeah.
You know, and we had, I would play outside all day by myself when I was 8 years old in the woods.
Yeah. And
I
going,
get
yeah.
bit by a snake or
Yeah.
drowned in a creek. You know, it's like, it was just, there's no way I would let
No,
my
yeah.
daughter do that. And
No, I mean you get on a bike and go across town on a bicycle and leave and just go. And
But I
gone.
think
no
that-
phone, no way to get a hold of me.
Right.
Nothing. Yeah.
just out there. But I think that made us stronger though.
Right.
And I think today's kids, like our daughter or my daughter, my wife and I's daughter, she's so protected. We're old parents too, so we're probably overly protective. But I
Right.
think a lot of parents today are more overly protective, and I think that's causing
Yeah.
that phenomenon where kids are not as they're not as bold, they're not as willing to take risks.
Right.
Maybe it creates a little bit of entitlement because
Maybe. I've worried about that with my
so much
kids,
is done
yeah.
for them.
Yeah. I work really hard not to have that effect, but I've worried about that too as well.
But I think these things work themselves out. You
They
know, it's
will.
like, our society has changed so much, especially with technology and the sciences. So I just think it's just part of the process, man. I think we go through these. Every other generation has new obstacles, and they figure it out. You know,
Yeah.
I think millennials are starting to figure it out because they're getting older now, and they're like, oh, I guess,
yeah, that's true.
maybe things are different than I thought they were. Like
Yeah.
they have to change their path. And now we have the next generation after them, which is Z, and then whoever decided this
It's confusing and it's
labeling
it's too much
system.
overlap.
They started at the end of the alphabet.
Yeah, this
So
is
after Z, do you just go to
A. We're
AA?
back to A. Yeah, AA.
Yeah,
probably because they'll all be alcoholics, so they need to be AA.
You can
I'm
throw
wondering.
numbers in there.
And you're better than I am. I was going to hear. I was like, what comes after millennial? I don't know, Z. I mean,
Z is now. Like the
Yeah.
Z is, I guess our kids are Z.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. See.
I will say, I understand the sort of caveats against like millennials and stuff like that a lot of people have. I don't really have them. Like
Yeah.
I've kind of noticed, like
No, yeah.
I'm totally a Gen Xer. Like I'm completely Gen Xer. I'm jaded. I was raised up by the Boomers, and I've seen the Millennials, and I've seen the Z come out, and I've had a lot to kind of think about. But honestly, there are some things I like about the Millennials, in that they seem to be a little more conscious of other people.
Yeah,
That's true.
To a detriment,
No.
where it's too much. Like PC is like culture can get
Yeah,
too.
the woke
It
culture
can
is
become
a
a
little
prison
crazy.
after a while. And it's
Cancel
like you got-
culture.
Yeah, exactly.
It gets a little occultish,
But
I think
it's-
it's the pendulum. It'll swing back.
Yeah.
But I remember growing up in the '80s, like people were just
Oh yeah.
not so. Everybody was rough around the
Oh,
edges.
yeah.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah.
School was brutal. Kids were brutal. Friends were brutal. Like
Oh,
it was
yeah.
definitely
Oh,
a different
yeah.
time. Man.
Yeah,
Survival
yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Totally.
Oh, 100%.
Completely. I got picked on from like
Yeah.
kindergarten all the way through. Things got better in high school, but
Yeah.
it was just terrible all the way through
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Awful.
I think as the pendulum swing, I was picked on and then went to be the one that was doing the picking on, and that's probably why I overprotect my kids some, because I was such a little shit.
Yeah,
But
that's funny.
yeah, no. So, but I do agree with that. They're definitely considerate and more possibly more compassionate than I was at that age.
Right.
They seem to be. Yeah.
Yeah, they seem to be.
But I think a lot of that is also the availability of information now is.
Oh yeah,
We can
It's a
all
big part of it.
yeah.
we all have these, so we
Yeah.
have access to so much knowledge
That's
and
true.
information now.
That's true.
It's like it seems in some ways, I guess it could make things less personable. Like communication is more
Yeah.
impersonal now, but you can see people suffering a lot easier,
That's true.
and maybe
Yeah.
their access to that or their being exposed to that helps them be more compassionate to
Yeah.
other people.
Makes it a lot easier to know about each other around the world too.
Right.
Yeah.
We have a
Yeah.
much more, even if you're just going to stay in your hometown and not drive 10 miles outside of it, you're still, you'll probably have the internet and you'll probably
Right.
Yeah.
be exposed to everything,
That's right.
out there.
I think because I think especially like in the 80s and before, I think now it makes me think about racism and issues like that, socioeconomic issues and things.
Yeah.
How ridiculous some of those ideologies are, and a lot of that's just ignorance, just people
Yeah.
not
Complete bullshit.
Yeah.
not leaving their bubbles, because we're all the same thing. Everybody in the whole, we're all human beings. We're all Homo sapiens.
Yeah.
People look different because their ancestors were living in certain regions of the country or the world. And I think the access to information we have now expands people's minds a lot. And I think
It's
you don't see as much of the closed-minded ideology.
It's
Yeah.
the lifting of a veil almost.
Yeah, right.
Because the cool thing, like back in the day, you'd have this person who's the authority figure and they would tell you how it is, and well, it's that way.
And that's
Yeah.
just a
But now
person
you
like
can
us.
this person and this person and this person are saying totally different things.
That's right.
And I
Right.
looked them up and they've done it way longer than
Yeah.
you. So,
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you can call people on their bullshit now. Like
Yeah.
they can't lie to you as easily.
yeah.
it's good.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's here. The oracle's here.
If
I
you're willing to look for it.
Yeah.
I always teach, I feel like teaching has turned into more like, have you Google searched that yet?
Right. Yeah.
It's worth a Google.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually talking to my therapist. I go to therapy once a month.
Hey, there you go.
Just to
Keep it level.
work with the anxiety. But I don't take anxiety medication or anything. I just think it's a good thing. Because we were taught growing up that it's not a good thing, but
Right.
Right.
I think it is a good thing. And we were talking about how things are so different now with the access to information. And he was saying, he made a good point that they've actually done studies on the current youngest generations, which I guess is the Generation Z, that that generation won't look to their parents for information like we did. Because you think about it, I have a lot of information
Yeah.
that's just bullshit. It's not real. I'll tell people things now. I'm like, wait a minute, when did I learn this?
Yeah.
Let's Google this and find out if it's true.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's going away, which is great because now it's the information they have access to more factual information. And it's based on science and studies and research.
Right.
And so like now with our kids, we have to be careful what we tell them.
Oh yeah.
Because if we keep telling the wrong information, they're
Yeah.
going to not believe us. They're
Yeah.
like, Dad, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, Dad, I'm going to fact check this. Hold on, Dad.
So now, like, I'll be like, if Isla asks me a question, I'll say, oh, let's look it up.
Yeah.
If I don't know for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So I think but it's a good thing.
No, it is.
It's a good thing.
It is. Oh, definitely. They can check it.
Yeah.
Because you want to be, on some level, you want to be the father that knows all, right?
Right, yeah.
But the
you can't
realization that you can't be.
be. Yeah.
Right? But hey, I can Google with the best of them. We can get.
But I
we
think
can figure it
saying
out.
I don't know, let's look it up is
Awesome.
is really a better answer
Yeah,
anyway.
I like that
Yeah.
answer anyway.
Yeah.
In business, that answer works. It works with your kids. It works in business. Works from a consumer perspective.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? You asked me a really good question. I'm not sure, but let's look into it together. Let's
Yeah.
figure it out. And I think that works beautifully with kids.
And I think in business, in family and business and art, vulnerability is a big thing. People appreciate honesty and vulnerability.
Yeah.
Because if you know everything,
Yeah.
then nobody wants to be around
Well, and
you.
if you know everything and you project that you're perfect, people will expect you to be perfect.
Or they'll just know you're a liar.
Or they know you're a liar. You're full of shit. This guy, hey, don't go see that guy. He's full of shit.
Yeah,
I'm telling you. I know one or two of those.
Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah.
good to know who is full of shit.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, every
That's
once in a
true.
while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
And you can still do business with those people. You just have to know who they are.
yeah. That's what I was going to say. That's actually what I was going to say. You can do business, even if somebody's a crook. You can do business with a crook. You just have to know they're a crook.
That's what Jeff told me.
That's
one time,
exactly
back in the day.
I was going to say that's a Jeffism.
Yeah.
so, but you just got to be aware of that. But yeah, no, it's, you got to. I'm looking at it, and having kids is an awesome process because I'm learning. They ask the damnedest questions. I'm like, well, where did you come up with that? Right? Where are
Yeah.
you? Why are we even talking about this? Right? But, they're cool.
It's amazing what young kids can think up and
Oh,
things they say, or when they say things that you would say,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you've never told them that.
Yeah. It throws you off a little bit.
Like, oh wait,
Yeah.
that's me.
Oh yeah. My son, we were driving. This was last summer. We were driving down the road, and I'm always talking business, and he hears it. Obviously, my oldest son Daniel, and he says something about he's always saying which business he's going to do, and he was talking about a gentleman that was mowing lawn, and there's the truck and obviously the lawn service on the side of it, and he's mowing. He's like, "Gosh, you see that, Dad? He missed over there. I wouldn't pay that guy $1 to mow my lawn." And I laughed. I was like, that sounds exactly like, because I was sitting here looking like, man, that guy's doing a terrible job. And at the time he was 8, and now he's 9. But my 8-year-old said something like, well, I would say like, man, this guy, take pride in what you're doing. What are you doing over there, right? Like,
That's funny.
it is funny that he says he wouldn't pay $1, and I'm just laughing because that's very close to what I would say. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good example of that. So, but so maybe the millennials, and including myself in this, maybe there's hope for us after all.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I know several millennials that are
Yeah.
very successful.
Yeah, shout out to Tanner.
Oh, yeah.
Tanner Plains.
Yeah.
Doing an awesome job. But yeah, there's a lot that are doing well, and we've got some that work for us.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, and I have a good friend in L.A. that's doing very well. Shout out to Justin Xavier. I guess that's his Hollywood name.
Hey.
He's just produced his second film. We'll have him on the podcast eventually.
Awesome.
But yeah, he's doing very well, and he's a really good writer and actor.
Yeah.
And he has multiple podcasts too.
Oh, yeah?
So yeah, we'll
He's making us look bad.
be on his podcast too.
No, that's awesome. But, man.
Well, you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, man. This is a good.
All right.
Hey, episode 1, right?
Yeah, episode 1.
Oh,
It's exciting.
yeah. This is an eye-opening experience. And so for the first time in a long time, this has been something completely new.
Yeah,
That's
true. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is very different from anything else we've done.
Very true. Very true.
All right.
Cool.
That's a wrap.
See you guys.
Later.